Guys, hello. Welcome back, guys. This is Ezekiel Trezevant, Las Vegas Raiders on SI, co-beat writer Ezekiel Trezevant here joining you as we enter week three against the Washington Commanders. First and foremost, though, I feel like we can't really talk about week three without talking about week two. So, right off the top, thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining us, and we'll get right to it. I want to make sure I'm efficient with your time. I do feel like there's a decent amount of things to talk about into this third game of the season for the Raiders. So first and foremost, coming off that Monday Night Football game, I don't think there's really any way to dress it up any more than what it was. It's There's things that have to be corrected. I mean, that's what we saw on Monday night. Now, there's a lot of things that went wrong. And I think that all kind of started really from the jump, right? I think that first interception right on the first play of the game, unfortunately, I think that set the tone for the rest of the day. But more specifically, in terms of things that they have to get fixed in terms of the Raiders, first and foremost, offensively, and I think we can all agree that most of the corrections, even though both sides have corrections, most of those corrections are probably on the offensive side of the ball at this point. I feel like the defense has played pretty good over the last or first two games of the season. I believe it's 6 points that they've given up over the second half of the first two games combined between both second halves. And so I think that kind of shows where the focus is in terms of the Raiders heading into week three. But offensively, you have to fix the run blocking. It's been an issue really for, if you ask me, the last two seasons, and then it's an issue here as well. A lot of talent on the offensive line. It's not necessarily knocking these guys individually, but I think even those guys, we spend time with these guys in the locker room, from time to time, or pretty much every day. I feel like the offensive line would tell you as well that there is room for improvement and that they can get better. But I don't think that the issues that they're having are coincidental. I mean, 2 seasons ago they finished with the third fewest rushing yards in the league. Last season it was the fewest amount of rushing yards in the league. You draft Ashton, great running back. None of us doubt Ashton's skills or his potential. And 2 games in, yes, it's very early. I get it. I believe the Raiders are second, or they have the second fewest rushing yards in the league after 2 games. Now, you think about all the changes that they've made over the offseason. You added a new quarterback. You added a new offensive coordinator. You added multiple wide receivers. You added a new running back. You actually added two new running backs, but obviously Ashton is the guy. You spent the sixth round draft pick on a running back. So the talent at running back isn't the question anymore. The main common denominator over the last 2 to 3 seasons, specifically last season and this season more so, is really the offensive line. Outside of Meredith being put in there, pretty much all the same players are there. They have to figure it out. They can figure it out, but it is imperative. They have to. There, it doesn't matter what running back you are. It doesn't matter if you are Ashton Genty. It doesn't matter if you're the third running back off the bench. No running back is going to be good if there is a defender at his feet as soon as he gets the ball. It doesn't matter who you are. Okay, they have to block better in the run game. Another thing that the offensive line, this is a little bit more specific to the center who's been Jordan Meredith. That we spoke to Pete this week and we spoke to Gino about it. And those guys, they were gracious. They were very gracious in what they said and how they responded to the questions. But we asked them about the snaps and how they were an issue on Monday night. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. This is not something that's being drummed up. Anybody who watched the game could see there were snaps to the left, to the right, up high, down low, hitting the ground all game. I mean, it was hard to watch. Geno Smith would never say it, but there's no way a quarterback can do everything. He needs to have blocking. He needs to have pass blocking. He needs you to block for the run game so he can hand the ball off. There's just a lot of things going wrong that they can work on. Now, that goes into the fact that this is a new offense. All of those guys are out there learning something new. So you have to be patient with them, right? I think overall, if you look at what happened on Monday night, what I felt like I saw was a team that wanted to win very, 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 very badly. They wanted it. I mean, all of the everything that you needed, all the superlatives were there, right? It was Pete's birthday, Monday Night Football, first home game. You just won week one on the road. You can go 2-0 in overall, and you can be basically at the top of the AFC West. It was all there, and there's no way that those guys didn't feel that. They felt the buzz that was in Allegiant. A lot of people underestimate what 60, 70,000 screaming people can do and how much that energy transfers. But there was a buzz in Allegiant, and it was a buzz of a crowd that was wanting to believe. It was a buzz of a crowd that was waiting, who honestly I felt like Raider Nation, everybody that was at Allegiant, I felt a sense of, hey, this is it. This is the chance that Raider Nation, the Raiders get to go 2-0, kind of build, right? That was the buzz that I felt in Allegiant. And then when the interception happened, it was like you could kind of feel like, oh no, here we go again from the crowd, right? Now to that point, interception on the first play of the game to me is a bad omen. I feel like I don't know what the numbers are, but I feel like it has to be a low percentage of how many teams have thrown an interception on the first play of the game and won. I don't see how that translates well. But I also am, of the belief that if you fumble or you turn it over on the very first play of the game, you literally have every other play of the game to turn the things around. So I see both sides of it. But at the same time, momentum is huge. Momentum is a real thing, especially in football. You saw it in week one, right? You saw momentum kind of sway back and forth in week one, and it worked out in the Raiders' favor. Week two, it didn't necessarily work out. So you have to do all you can to keep momentum. Or I mean, week one was about keeping momentum, right? Scoring and then throwing the interception and then getting momentum back. Week two was about, hey, you gotta get momentum before you can keep it, and they never got it on Monday night. So gotta fix the run blocking period. It's not all on Ashton. It's not all on. This is a team game. It's the ultimate team game for a reason, and we say that the game is won in the trenches for a reason. And they lost the trenches on Monday night, and you saw the results, which brings me to the next topic of Jordan um, um, JPJ, excuse me, JPJ, his return. He was listed as a full participant on Thursday. You know, Pete was asked about JPJ going into the game, and it sounds like it's a go. I don't think the game that he missed I don't think that the struggles that you saw were a coincidence. Now, JPJ has some things that he has to get better at as well, right? I think everybody would agree on that. But I do think that they missed him sorely on Monday night. Now, do I think it would have necessarily made that big of a difference? I'm not quite sure. But I do, going back to momentum, I do think that JPJ maybe could have helped them pop an extra run here or extra run there, and then they could have built momentum on that. I do think JPJ is worth a few extra positive plays on the offensive line. Obviously, offensive linemen, what they do gets overlooked a lot. But I think you saw a decent amount of a difference between what the offensive line did in week one and week two, with and without JPJ in there. So they need him. I can't stress that enough. They need JPJ. He's got things to work on, but they undoubtedly need JPJ. So with him returning, I think that could help the Raiders out against Washington, just to have your full starting line, back together. I don't think that many people remembered that JPJ was missing on Monday night, but I think it was pretty obvious if you were paying really any kind of attention. There's another thing there. So we talked about the snaps there. So in terms of again Monday night, in terms of the offense, again focusing there, because the defense, if you ask me, they've done their job. Now they have issues too, which we will talk about in a moment, but I think there are far more issues on the offensive side of the ball. I think one thing that I noticed on Monday night more so than week one, because I don't think Chip Kelly had to search as hard for this, but I think in week two, what I noticed, what I felt like I was noticing was it got to a point where Chip Kelly was just trying to find something he could call that would work, that the guys could run correctly, that they could execute. Execution is the name of the game. I think Chip was trying to find, and I think it varies from game to game, right? Some days it's just not your day. I don't care what sport you play. Some days it's just the passes aren't getting completed, the shots aren't falling, if you will, right? Some days it's just not your day. And I felt like Monday we saw offensive coordinator trying to figure out, hey, if I run this, is it going to work? Can they run this? Forget what the Chargers are doing. The Chargers played a great game. But aside from what the Chargers are doing, the Raiders were messing up as well. They beat themselves to a certain degree as well. And I think what we saw on Monday night was Chip Kelly saying, "Hey, what can I run right now that these guys will run correctly and that we could move the ball with some ease." Which again is another topic, if you don't mind, really quickly. Another thing was that a lot of the yards that the Raiders got on offense on Monday, they were. I don't want to use the word stress, but it seemed like they were stressing to get them right. Like Genty would have, Ashton would have a nice run, but he hit 10 different jukes and he went three different directions and it was a 3-yard gain. I just use that as an example. There are many other examples, screen passes that they caught the pass, they got a couple yards, but they worked really hard to get 2 or 3 yards. I think that all plays into what Chip was experiencing as the play caller, right? Just trying to figure out what in the world can we call today that they can run today. Chip probably felt like, hey, I know that they ran X, Y, and Z right in week one. That's not even working tonight. I don't think that worked well on Monday night. I don't think the Raiders' bread and butter was there for them on Monday night, and they had trouble adjusting to the things that they did well, that they've been doing well for months, and they did well in week one. I don't think it was working on Monday night, and I don't think that they could figure out on the fly how to fix it. So I think getting off to a better start, right? Not throwing an interception first play of the game, right? Maybe, getting some points here and there on the first, drive. We'll kind of start things off in Washington a little bit better. They have to get off to a good start. And honestly, even if it's not a good or a great start, just don't get off to a bad start. I think that's kind of where it is right now, right? So with that said, we talked about the offensive line and how they can get better. I mean, that goes down the line. That goes to your starting quarterback as well. Gino did not have his best outing. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Gino kind of struggles in primetime games, and Monday was another one. But what I feel like all of us recognized from Gino was that he was trying too hard. He wanted it too badly. There were some passes that I think Gino would take back, but he just wanted it too bad. He wanted to do well. He wants it happens, right? These guys are human, right? I think a lot of times people forget that these guys have feelings and emotions just like all of us, right? They want to make other people happy. They want to do their job well, just like the everyday man does, right? And I think that things kind of ballooned on Gino, but what I noticed was that he was taking accountability of it and for his part of it. Actually, and if honestly, if you ask me, I felt like Gino did what every good and great franchise quarterback does, and that's take a little bit more of the blame than maybe he deserved. Right? Gino is the quarterback. Gino can't block for himself. He can't snap the ball correctly. He can't get open as a wide receiver. He can't run the ball as a running back. But he's not pushing the blame onto anybody else, not overtly or not subtly. Gino's owning all of that, and I think you got to respect it. But I think again, I can't stress enough, and I feel like the people that in the media room, we all kind of we all kind of agreed, and we've even asked Pete and Chip and asked Gino, hey, is a little bit of what we saw Monday night just Gino trying too hard? And I think he was, but I think it was a overcompensating. I think it's, hey, I don't know where the ball is going to be snapped from this play to the next play. I don't know if my receivers are going to get open. I don't know if I'm going to have blocking, even if the snap is correctly. We can't run the ball. I think that balloons on anybody. I think that balloons on any quarterback. And then you add the mental aspect of nobody's doing their job, and I'm going to get all the blame because I'm the quarterback. I think it's human nature to understand that those kinds of things play a part in the game as well. Also, in terms of Gino, want to point out that there are some things that, again, I go back to saying human nature, but it's accurate. Gino was under this duress for 4 quarters, 4 full quarters. Gino was either running for his life, he was pressured, he was being hounded by the Chargers defense. I think we got to keep in mind that builds on the quarterback. 4 quarters of just being stressed out every single play. Nothing's going right one play for 4 full quarters. We're at home. It's my coach's birthday. I love my coach. He's been my guy since Seattle. I mean, put yourself in Gino's shoes, right? There's a human element of every play in every game. There's a human element. So I would say keep that in mind with Gino. The good thing is that we've seen already in week one, we've seen Gino go ball out, right? We've seen what he can do. And we saw what he did in week one, and the situations weren't all that great. It was raining like crazy in New England, right? The ground game didn't necessarily get going. He threw an early interception, right? He persevered in week one and still threw for 360 yards. So we've seen him this season with this team do it. He's just got to do it more. And that's another thing Pete Carroll talked about this week. He said, hey, they just have to go do it. Some of this is just you have to go do it. The coaches can coach you up as much as they want to. You can study your playbook as much as you want to. You can work out all off season. You have to go do it, right? And I think that's kind of where these guys are. And understand that is, growth is not linear, right? Week one, you would hope that week two they keep going up, but this is basically a brand new team, especially on the offensive side of the ball, outside of the offensive line. And even then, the offensive line is still kind of different than it was last year. So this is still a newer team. And I think that's what you saw on Monday. You saw a team that was basically has just been put together over the offseason, their second game together versus a team that's been together a little bit longer. Even though if it's not that long, but they've been through a lot more than this Raiders team has, the Chargers have. And I think that's part of what you saw. A team that's been together versus a team that was their second game, playing an actual game together. I think that played a lot in terms of Monday night's results. So, keep that in mind. The Chargers are a good team. There's nothing wrong with losing to a team that is, they're better, right? At this point, at week two, they were the better team. There's nothing wrong with that. You still have 15 other games to go figure things out. So keep everything in perspective. Now, I think we have harped on the offense enough. I think they know that they have to work some things out. Guys, as good as the Chargers were, and we're not taking anything away from the Chargers, they were good. They were really good. But a lot of this is, if you ask me, on the Raiders, and that they have to fix it. Um, Another quick thought in terms of the Raiders offense that I think is, I think it's there, right? I'm not just go watch what happened in week two. I think what a part of why week two went the way it did so drastically in terms of the Raiders offense was because Brock Bowers is not 100%. I mean, it's not a secret. I don't think the Chargers think that Brock was 100%. And I think without Brock out there, or without Brock becoming, if Brock is out there and he's not a legitimate threat, that's a whole different offense out there, right? Not having to defend healthy Brock Bowers changes any defensive coordinator's game plan, right? So I think we can't underestimate the fact that they ran out in week two and they played without JPJ, and they were playing without a 100% Brock Bowers. Now in the NFL, everybody's going to get hurt. I get that, but Brock Bowers is all about speed, strength, athletic ability, agility, and with that knee issue, that slows him down. That slows him down, and that completely changes the dynamic of the offense, right? Having a healthy Brock Bowers, and guys understand, these guys know those athletes out there in the field, they know that, hey, that player over there is not 100%. It's not, and on top of that, you also have the injury reports. It was no secret that Brock was not 100%. So those guys know that, and those guys they'll start to defend things a little bit differently when they know they don't have to have a conscious effort to stop Brock Bowers. That changes the complete offense, and I think people are underestimating not having Brock fully healthy, or not himself, if you will, and not having JPJ. That's two huge parts of your offense. I think you got to keep that in mind. But again, enough on the offense. Let's talk about the defense, man. Looking good out there. Looking good out there. And, more importantly, they're looking good as the offense still tries to figure things out. Over the last couple of years, the offense has routinely left the defense in some, not so good situations, if you will, right? And more times than not, the defense has shown up, but that has especially been the case this season. One thing that I would like to point out is that I feel like this season is different. Now, I'm not promising that these guys are going to win X amount of games. I think they'll win 8 games this year, but I want to make sure I'm tempering expectations. I think with these guys and this defense, what I'm noticing is in week one and week two, when the offense doesn't do well, or they stall out for one, two, three, 4 drives at a time, whatever it may be, the Raiders defense is not getting down on themselves. Literally not even until the game. I don't think I've seen them get down on themselves or on the team at any point. Not week one, not week two, even up. They fought into the end of week two. I think last year that might not have been the case, right? So I think the fact that the defense they don't mind being put in those situations, those situations where they're not being given really, they're not being set up for success because the offense made a mistake here and there. And these guys are out there thriving in terms of defensively after 2 games. You have to tip your hat to Patrick Graham. And everything that he's doing so far. He's pressing the right buttons. He's dialing them up. It's been very impressive to watch them play as well as they played, and more specifically, make the adjustments, because they have been doing that. There's a reason why they've only given up 6 points in 2 combined second halves in the first 2 weeks of the season. That's adjustments. That's, hey, we've seen what you're doing. We're going to go to halftime and we're going to adjust, and then we're going to also have our adjustments for the adjustments, right? I mean, in my opinion, in the NFL, you have to be prepared to adjust to the adjustments, because the other team is going to make adjustments. And I think Patrick Graham has done a great job of that so far. I think one thing that I like about the Raiders defense is that they're everything that we saw in training camp, right? They've been consistent. We knew coming into the season that, in my opinion, you were not going to run on this team. You were not going to run against the Raiders defense. And not saying it's impossible, but you're not, for the most part, you're not going to run against this team. You might get some runs here and there, but overall, they're stopping the run. Now, pass game, you can pass against them. We saw that. We saw that in week two. Herbert and the Chargers attacked, the Raiders defense middle of the field. They attacked them deep, and they did it with precision. And I think that's kind of where the Raiders defense struggled in terms of against Los Angeles. It was, they couldn't figure out, hey, is Herbert going deep? Is he going mid? Is he going middle of the field? Is he going underneath? Like, they couldn't figure out where he was going. He was kind of having his way. But luckily, they would hold, when it came to points, they would hold him as best they could. And I think the results are there. So I think, that's one thing they have to work on, is they know, hey, you're not going to run against the Raiders defense this year, but that coverage, it has to be fixed, which means that A, you got to keep on stopping the run, and B, you actually have to get home or at least distract the quarterback enough to get him off his spot. I think, and another thing, if you get him off the spot, get him down, bring him down. Herbert, there were multiple times where they had Herbert, it seemed like they had him dead to rights, and he'd slip away, and there's another 10 yards right there, right? You got to get him down. That's going to be important against Washington as well, obviously, with Mariota today on Sunday. So that's going to be important. With Jaden Daniels not playing, obviously that changes things, but at the same time, I don't think the Raiders are in position to worry too much about if the starting quarterback is there or not. You don't have to look very far to remember last season. I believe it was the Panthers game, week 3 or week 4 of last year. Uh, in Bryce, their quarterback, he was benched, and I think they put in Andy Dalton, if I'm not mistaken. First home game of the season last year for the Raiders, and the unknown of the backup quarterback pretty much cost the Raiders the game. I mean, Andy Dalton got the ball first, marched right down the field, and he was the backup quarterback. So I don't think the Raiders are in position to necessarily concern themselves with who the starting quarterback is, in the sense of you can't let your guard down regardless. So I think overall the Raiders are going to have to concern themselves with Washington's defense. Washington has a good defense on their hands, and at the same time, the Raiders' offense, they put some things on film that you have to expect Washington's defense to try to replicate, specifically the pressure aspect. The Raiders have done okay when there hasn't been much pressure sent their way towards their offensive line, but there has been two games in a row where the opposing defensive coordinator started dialing up the blitzes, and things seemingly start to kind of go downhill for the Raiders. So the Raiders have to figure out how to handle that pressure on the offensive side of the ball. How do you handle the pressure from the defense? They got to figure that out, and I think a lot of things will go well for them after that. In terms of predictions, I'll be honest. Predictions aren't necessarily the thing that I'm the best at, if you will. I will say going into this, I had this as a loss because Jaden. I was assuming that Jaden was going to play this week. So when I came up with my season predictions, I had this as a loss for the Raiders. But now obviously it's a little bit more of a toss up. So with that said, I'm not going to give an actual prediction, but I will say this: there's not a game outside of one of the Kansas City. I've said this consistently. Outside of the one of the Kansas City games, there's not a game that I feel like the Raiders cannot win, that they're going to be completely out of. And if you think about the last season or two, we haven't been able to always say that. So I think that's showing progress that, hey, every game they play this year, they have a chance to win. I don't think they're going to sweep the Kansas City Chiefs this year. I don't. So I think they're, minus one of those two games, there's not a game that I feel like the Raiders cannot win. So would it surprise me at all if they go if they win against the Commanders? Not one bit. But at the same time, there is a large element of the unknown, right? And that's on both sides, right? We don't know what the Commanders are going to necessarily look like. This Commanders team this season right now with Mariota, and we've now seen two different versions of the Raiders in just 2 weeks. So a lot of this is the element of the unknown. But I think what's going to be constant and what's going to be interesting to see, and it's going to be today for this game and going forward, is how the Raiders adjust and how they execute. That's going to be the name of the game for them for the rest of the season, right? Can they execute properly or at a high enough rate to where they're not just completely handcuffed like they were on Monday night, offensively specifically, right? And how do they adjust when the other teams start making their adjustments? So we'll see how it goes. We'll see what the Raiders do, man. They've been working hard. They've been putting in the work. This feels different, and I say this aside from results, on game day. This Raiders team feels different than what's been happening here the last couple of seasons. I can say that confidently and comfortably. These guys look different. And a loss is a loss. There's no way to dress it up or make it look any better than what it really is. It was a tough loss. But at the same time, you can learn a lot from losses. I think they will learn from that loss, and they have to build on it, right? They have to get going in the right direction, and that should start against Washington. As always, guys, thank you for joining me. It was a pleasure. Thank you for your time. I hope I'm getting better over time. That's always my goal, is to keep on getting better as I do this. Stick with me. Any pieces of advice you guys can give me, I'm all for it. I'm a listener. I'm a sponge. I want to get it. Raider Nation, hope you guys are enjoying your time with me. Thank you again. Las Vegas Raiders on SI, Kobe Ryder, Ezekiel Trezevant. Talk to you soon.